Hey guys, it's Justin the Diabetic, and this week's video we're going to talk about the major differences between auto mode and manual mode and what you need to know if you are transitioning from a manual mode pump, let's say the original Omnipod to the new Omnipod 5, or Tandem Basal IQ to Tandem Smart IQ, I believe is what it's called, or Medtronic's auto mode or manual mode to manual mode. Manual mode to auto mode. I'm sorry, guys. It's early in the morning. Please bear with me. As well as the differences between those two and what happens if you need to switch from, like I said originally, manual mode to auto mode, or in the future, auto mode to manual mode because of a pump failure or a pump needing to be replaced, or you're just changing to a new pump. So stay tuned with this week's video, and hopefully you guys will understand this a lot better than I can speak clearly today. All right, so let's get started. In this week's video, I'm going to start with the basics. We're going to talk about how a normal pump works in manual mode, and hopefully that makes sense for you guys. I am going to show you on my iPad my CareLink reports. I'm trying to make this as easy to demonstrate for you guys as possible. So let me save this report so I can pull it up as well and you guys can see it. Okay, so to understand how manual mode works, you have to kind of think about it as best as possible. So I have my iPad here and I'm trying to show you guys. You can see here on this day, I have a, I'm trying to make sure that I can, yeah. So you can see here on this day, I have a basal rate of almost 4 units of insulin. And throughout most of the day, that's what my basal rate is. It's between 3.5, I believe, and 3.9. I think that's what I vary between throughout the day. But you can see that my blood sugars are remaining very stable with that basal rate. And that's what we want to achieve when using manual mode. You want your basal rates to keep your blood sugars within a target range. If for some reason your blood sugar drops a little below your target range, then the suspend before low on the pump should work and allow your body to come back up within that range, and then the pump will resume its normal basal rate. So let's get into this right here. So as you can see, my pump suspended because of low right here for this little bit of time. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see everything. So the pump suspended before low. I went ahead and resumed insulin delivery because I knew that I was about to eat. So I went ahead and I programmed for that 4 grams of carbs. And you can see this little shading here, and that's how that insulin works for your food boluses or correction bolus. It uses your active insulin time to calculate about how long that insulin should be active in your body. So mine is set up for 2 hours and 45 minutes. So you can see that over that time, that gradually comes down to nothing. And then I did another one here just to kind of, I was trying to correct this little bit of high that I had. So that should be our goal in manual mode, is to maintain a constant blood sugar when we're not eating or anything with our basal rates, and then our carb ratio and our bolus insulin from our food should allow our insulin, our blood sugar to rise a little bit. And then within that time frame that's set for your active insulin time, your sugar should come back down to a level that is very close to what it was before you ate. So that's ideally what we're looking for in manual mode. That basal rate, you're going to get that constantly with your pump. It's not going to change whether or not you eat or anything of that nature. Unless you do a temp basal or something of that for exercise, or you're feeling sick, or any of those other settings options that your insulin pump may have, that will be the only reason that that's going to change. If we look at this graph again, you guys can see that that basal rate where's it at? Oh, right here at the bottom, this pink line stays continuous throughout the whole day except for when the pump's suspended. So that's what a basal rate is going to do in manual mode. You, the user, are responsible for if you're having an off day and your blood sugar is slightly higher to keep doing those correction boluses to keep your sugar steady and stable. So let's hop over to auto mode and kind of look at the difference. So auto mode is like an adaptive cruise control system on your car. If your blood sugar rises, it's going to increase your basal and speed up that insulin. The amount of insulin, it's going to increase. Just like the speed of your car will increase if there's nothing in front of it. And then if your sugar is starting to drop, your pump is going to back off of that basal or slow down, so that way it stays within its target range. For the Medtronic pumps currently, the 670G and the 770G, that target blood glucose is 120. A lot of us kind of don't really like it. Doesn't give us the best control, and I think I'm fixing to show you why we don't like it. So, looking at this CareLink report here, you can see that on this date, I was in auto mode, and my sugars run a little higher in auto mode. So right here, we're at 175, 180, 188. You can see that I'm constantly doing little correction boluses to try to get my blood glucose to come down, but the pump is giving me about 3 units of auto basal. But you can see, let me zoom in so you guys can see this a little better. You can see here that these auto basals, it changes. So right here, the pump went into safe basal, and it started giving me a very minimal amount of insulin, which is not going to help bring down my blood sugar of 175. So it ramped back up, and I took a 0.7 correction dose, and then for some reason it dropped back off its insulin delivery there. Then it will ramp back up again. I take another correction, and you can just see that auto mode is constantly bouncing back and forth. Eventually, my blood sugar came down to the target that we would want it to be at, and you can see that these fluctuations are a little bit more aggressive as far as ramping up and then backing down, because the pump is trying to maintain that bolus there. But here is something in the main point of this whole video that I want to share with you guys. You can see that auto mode, when you bolus for a food item, stops insulin delivery completely on that auto basal for the first few minutes of your bolus. So that, I don't think a lot of people account for when they're looking at their pump settings. So if we think about previously before, earlier when we were talking about manual mode, you're always going to get that basal rate. It's going to stay there whether you're eating, you're sleeping, whatever you're doing. As long as your pump's connected, you're going to get that set insulin amount. With auto mode, when you program for a food item, it's going to stop giving delivery, or your basal insulin or your auto basal is going to stop for your bolus for a minute, which means that typically your carb ratio needs to be more aggressive while in auto mode, because that insulin that the pump is not giving you in that auto basal should be accounted for in your bolus, just to make sure that you don't go high. That's something that I noticed personally with my pump doing my transition over from auto mode this past week to manual mode. A lot of my pump settings have kind of changed. The basal rate that auto mode was giving me on average, or the basal insulin that auto mode was giving me on average for the past month, was about 60, 65 units of insulin a day. No, wait, excuse me, let me back that up. No, my total insulin was about 60 to 65 units per day with auto mode. I was getting a, here, let me just read it off these CareLink reports. So this particular day, my total insulin delivery was 56.2 units. I was getting 49.1 units in auto basal, and then I did 7.1 units in total bolus. The day before was a total daily insulin of 59 units with a total basal of 49 and a total bolus of 10. And both of those days, the time in range was not 100%. One day, the day with the 56.2 units, my time in range was 96%. And then the day with the 59 units, my time in range was 64%. So if I hop back over, hang on. If I hop over to this day in manual mode, my total daily insulin for the day was 84.4 units, with my total basal being 77.6 units and my total bolus being 6.8 units. So that should give you the information that you need right there. Auto mode is good at kind of saving you a little bit of insulin if you want to skirt by with the minimum amount of insulin needed. But this day in manual mode that I just read to you guys, I was within range 100% of the time, and I did not have a blood glucose higher than 155 on this particular day. That is the highest blood sugar that I had. I was 100% time in range because I'm getting the basal insulin that I need, and it's not getting changed for any reason. Then my carb ratio was reduced significantly because on this day I ate 32 grams of carbs on the day in manual mode, and that was only 6.8 units of insulin. And then the day before in manual mode, I had 24 grams of carbs, and that was 10 units of insulin. So I hope that if you're still paying attention to this video, you kind of can see what I'm trying to explain here, is that auto mode is going to have a lower basal rate and a higher carb ratio, whereas manual mode is going to have more insulin in your basal rate and a lower carb ratio and a lower correction insulin sensitivity in manual mode versus a higher insulin sensitivity in auto mode. Those are kind of something that I think that every user should understand and be comfortable with in case they have a pump failure or anything like that. That way they get the most peace of mind knowing how their insulin pump system works. So make sure you talk to your care team about that, or look at your CareLink reports. That gives you a lot of good information about what the pump is doing. I do not agree with the way that Medtronic does or displays their auto mode information for users. I don't like the little pink dots. I've seen on other apps that for people who have the Medtronic 780G, the graph shows the fluctuation in insulin delivery on the mobile device. And in here, in the CareLink reports, I wish that we could get more information for exactly what auto mode was doing. If it would tell us what those micro boluses were, like what's the amount totals per hour. Did I get 2.5 units of insulin? Then the next hour I got 1 unit of insulin. Like, I wish we could get more details on that besides the pink shading on our CareLink reports and then the total amount of insulin. I mean, you can zoom in and estimate that that's a little more than 2 point whatever units, but we don't get that precise information, and I wish Medtronic would give that to us for us to be able to look at and understand with our reports. So I've rambled here for quite some time. Again, I tried to explain this the best way that I know how. It's something that I've definitely discovered over the past week, that when calculating or estimating what my carb ratio should be and my basal rates and stuff like that, I was definitely shocked and surprised. But looking at the data that auto mode was giving me, plus some standard calculation tips that you can find that most dietitians and stuff use as a base rate, kind of comparing the data and blending them together and getting an estimate, it didn't take me more than 2 days to get a good basal rate lined out for me for what I needed, and an updated carb ratio and insulin sensitivity factor. I have been in manual mode now for more than 4 days. And you guys, I'm honestly going to say that I have been within range 100% of the time, and I do not believe that I've had a blood glucose higher than 160 for that time. My blood sugars have remained extremely stable, around 100, which is what I would prefer. Most of the time I'm around 120. Sometimes after I go a long period of time without eating, I will lower down into the 90s. And I do have my suspend before low set up, I believe, at 65, because I would prefer for my blood sugars to remain less than 100. So I don't want the pump suspending. As you can see, I woke up this morning. I was a little higher than I'd like when I did my calibration at I think it was 144, and I did take a correction bolus, and I'm kind of waiting for that to kind of bring me down a little. But for the most part, my time in range in manual mode has just been so much better. And the best part about it is I'm not getting woke up 500 times in the middle of the night because auto mode thinks that I should be a zombie the next day. So that is the best thing about being in manual mode so far. And, you know, if you make the switch, you don't like auto mode anymore and you want to go back to manual mode, and you see that your sugars are high and you feel like you're working too hard trying to maintain your sugar, you might need to make a little adjustment to your basal rate. Just remember to discuss that with your care team, because that little, let's say your basal rate is a 2 and you bump that up to 2.25 units an hour for the whole day, that is an additional, I'm doing the mental math, you're going to get that additional 0.25 units of insulin for every hour. So if we do that calculation, because I'm too tired to do it myself, let me type that in the calculator right now. So if we do 0.25 times 24 hours, that's just 6 additional units of insulin a day. So you make sure you want to make sure that you talk to your care team about that. And you know, you can have your basal rate vary per hour on your pump. So if you find that when you first wake up you need more insulin and your schedule's the same every day, talk to your care team and make those adjustments that you need. You know your body, you know what you need. Discuss what you want to do with them. I personally fully understand, and I like to know what my pump is doing and how that affects me, and I like to know how I react to what the pump is doing, and I think that gives me better control on my diabetes. So try to, if you want to, kind of study your CareLink reports, read your user guide for your pump, talk to your care team, and build that confidence up for yourself with your own diabetes management. And I think it will definitely help you be more comfortable and understand what is going on as far as your diabetes to personal life ratio, and make you a lot happier with it. So like I said, if you have any questions, drop a comment down below. I will answer it as soon as I can. And I'll see you guys next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and that notification bell, so that way you are updated every week when I post a video or I go live or anything like that. If you guys want me to go live, I can try to add that every couple weeks. Just schedule a time out with you guys in advance to go live for you guys, just to kind of, we can talk about whatever. We can talk about diabetes. You can ask me questions and I'll try to share what my knowledge is on it. We can talk about insulin pumps. Right now I'm very familiar with the Medtronic. I'm familiar with the Omnipod. I'm looking into the Omnipod 5, and I'm also kind of considering the Tandem, but the Omnipod 5 is top of my list at the moment. So I do have information about all of those. And if you are considering the Omnipod 5, go mess around with Omnipod 5 on their website, and you can find the user guide. It's already published and out on Omnipod's website if you want to read through it and kind of get some extra information about the pump and how it works, as well as the app that will control the pump. All that information is in there for you to kind of look at. I've looked at it, so that is there. So like I said, If you have any questions, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good week.